Venezuela, why this matters for Americans and investors. Venezuela may feel far away, but what happens there has real consequences for Americans and for investors around the world. This story is not just about politics. It is about energy, money, risk, and opportunity. Understanding Venezuela helps explain how global markets work and why government decisions can shape investment outcomes. Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserves in the world. More oil than Saudi Arabia. More oil than Russia. On paper, this should make Venezuela one of the richest energy producers on Earth, but reality tells a very different story. For decades, oil was the backbone of Venezuela's economy. The country once produced millions of barrels of oil every single day. Oil exports paid for public services, imports, and government spending. Venezuela was once a key energy supplier, including to the United States. Over time, things changed. Poor management, lack of investment, and political control weakened the oil industry. Infrastructure aged and broke down. Skilled workers left the country. Production dropped sharply. Today, Venezuela produces only a fraction of what it once did. This gap between massive oil reserves and low production is the core of the Venezuela story. It represents huge potential, but also huge risk. For Americans, energy matters. Oil prices affect gas prices, transportation costs, food prices, and inflation. When global oil supply tightens or expands, Americans feel it in everyday life. Venezuela, even with low production, still matters because it represents possible future supply. For investors, Venezuela represents a classic high-risk, high-uncertainty situation. The assets are there, but the environment is unstable. That combination demands caution. One of the biggest factors shaping Venezuela's economy is U.S. sanctions. For years, the United States has placed economic restrictions on Venezuela, especially targeting its oil sector. These sanctions limit who Venezuela can sell oil to, how it gets paid, and which companies can operate there. Sanctions are designed to influence government behavior, but they also have economic side effects. Oil revenue fell sharply. Government budgets collapsed. Inflation soared. The currency lost value. Everyday life became harder for ordinary people. From an investor point of view, sanctions create uncertainty. Even if an opportunity looks attractive, legal restrictions can make investing impossible or dangerous. Policies can change quickly depending on politics, elections, or global events. Recently, the United States has shown some willingness to adjust its approach. Limited agreements have allowed certain oil exports and specific companies to operate under strict rules. This has raised questions in financial markets. Does this mean Venezuela is coming back as a major oil producer? The answer is not anytime soon. Years of underinvestment cannot be fixed overnight. Oil fields need repairs. Refineries need upgrades. Pipelines need maintenance. Skilled workers must return. All of this takes time, money, and political stability. For Americans, the key point is that Venezuela is unlikely to suddenly flood the market with cheap oil. Any increase in supply would likely be slow and controlled. That means the short-term impact on gas prices is limited. For investors, the situation is more complex. Venezuela offers potential upside because of its massive reserves. But the risks are serious. Political instability is one major risk. Governments change policies. Contracts can be rewritten. Foreign companies may face legal disputes or asset seizures. Infrastructure risk is another factor. Even with access to oil, getting it out of the ground and into global markets is difficult without major investment. Sanction risk is also critical. A change in U.S. policy could instantly shut down operations or block payments. This uncertainty increases the risk premium investors demand. Because of these risks, Many investors avoid direct exposure to Venezuela. Instead, they watch from a distance. Some prefer indirect exposure through global energy companies or diversified energy funds. Venezuela also affects global markets in more subtle ways. Even if production stays low, expectations matter. News about policy changes or negotiations can move oil prices, energy stocks, and emerging market assets. Markets are forward-looking. They react not just to what is happening now, but to what might happen in the future. Venezuela represents a potential future supply source, and that alone influences sentiment. Still, Venezuela does not operate in isolation. Global oil prices are driven by many forces: U.S. shale production, OPEC decisions, geopolitical conflicts, and global demand all play larger roles. That means Venezuela is one piece of a much bigger puzzle. For investors today, the lesson is clear. Always separate potential from reality. Large resources do not guarantee easy profits. Political and legal risks matter just as much as financial numbers. Smart investors focus on diversification. They avoid putting too much exposure into any single high-risk region. They understand that stability often matters more than raw potential. For Americans, Venezuela highlights how global politics connect to everyday life. Energy security, inflation, and market stability are influenced by decisions made far beyond U.S. borders. Venezuela also serves as a reminder of how quickly fortunes can change. A country rich in resources can still struggle if institutions weaken and policies fail. Looking forward, Venezuela's future will depend on long-term reforms, political stability, and consistent policy. Even in the best case, recovery would take years, not months. For now, Venezuela remains a story of unrealized potential. A country with enormous resources, constrained by risk, uncertainty, and history. For investors, it is a case study in why risk management matters. For Americans, it is a reminder that global energy and global politics are deeply connected. Understanding Venezuela is not about predicting quick profits. It is about understanding how the world works, how markets react, and why patience and caution are essential in investing. That is why Venezuela matters. Please subscribe for more updates. Thank you.